Madam President, thank you for the recognition. I rise today to talk about the unimaginable losses that all of us in Colorado have experienced over this last week. While much of the nation's attention was focused on Syria or here on the activities in Washington, those of us in Colorado watched rainfall for 1, 2, 3, 4 days straight with no end in sight. Creeks like the one that runs behind my home in El Dorado Springs swelled. Culverts like those near Commerce City quickly filled with rushing water. And rivers like the Big Thompson near the beautiful town of Estes Park turned into walls of water that threatened entire communities. From the foothills of the Rocky Mountains to the eastern plains, rivers overtopped their banks, crumbling highways, drowning family homes, and transforming entire farms into lakes. And Madam President, many Americans have seen photos like this one that show the widespread and indiscriminate path of the floodwaters. And in some places, even today, entire communities are still underwater. Families and homes uprooted by the ferocious strength of nature. Madam President, it said that water makes the West possible. But this past week, Mother Nature gave us rain for 5 straight days. And now at least 8 people are dead, and hundreds are still missing or in need of rescue. And we pray that we find every single one of those missing persons alive and in good health. As of today, the President has issued major disaster declarations for 4 counties. And 15 counties are in a state of emergency where life-saving rescue efforts are still underway. In these areas, active search and rescue operations are being conducted 24 hours a day by the Colorado National Guard, local police and fire departments, and rescue teams flown in from across the state and around our country. At least 19,000 homes have been damaged or destroyed. Several towns, such as Jamestown and Lyons, have been washed out and lack even the most basic public services. The town of Estes Park, which I mentioned earlier, which is the gateway community to Rocky Mountain National Park, has literally, Madam President, cut off from the rest of the state because the 2 major highways to it have literally been destroyed, and the only access road will soon be closed for the winter. Now, there are some wonderful, inspiring stories out of these events that we couldn't comprehend and we couldn't predict. I want to start with the National Guard. The National Guard has done amazing, outstanding work rescuing thousands of Coloradans who've been affected by this disaster. And they tell me that more people have been rescued by air during the past few days than any time since the devastation we saw with Hurricane Katrina. We've seen, Senator Bennett, who's here with me, the governor, many members of our congressional delegation, the devastation of these floods with our own eyes. Just a few days ago, Saturday to be exact, Senator Bennett and I joined others to fly over flooded areas in Boulder and Larimer counties with the Colorado National Guard unit. And at one point, Madam President, as we circled over an area, we spotted a couple of families waving for help. And we were able to land and be a part of the effort that brought them out of these isolated situations. That experience impressed upon me the very human side of this disaster. And as we all know, that behind these graphic images that are being shown on TV are the lives of thousands of Colorado families, some forever changed. While so much of this disaster has taken on the grand proportions of a historic disaster, those whose lives have been affected by this flood have endured it on a very personal scale. And I think this photograph says it all. It's been the family that has to dig through mud and debris just to get into their kitchen, or the older couple who returns from an evacuation to see their lifelong home completely destroyed, or even, as I mentioned earlier, the extended family members who sit by the phone waiting for a call from a missing aunt or a niece or a child or a friend. These are the very human faces of this tragedy. And it's a tragedy from which we can't recover alone. The outpouring of support from our friends and neighbors has been so crucial to early response efforts, and this generosity will only strengthen us as we begin to recover. After all, there's no I in Colorado, and it's this strong sense of community that will allow us to recover from this disaster and to rebuild stronger and more resolute than before. And we're also going to rely on the full support of our federal partners. I've long supported disaster aid during Hurricane Sandy and Katrina, as well as when we've experienced other countless acts of God. And it's time again for us to come together as one nation and rebuild. This will not be fast. It will not be easy. Many of our narrow mountain highways that have been carefully built through steep canyons have been destroyed, washed downstream. And these highways, like those in the presiding officer's state, are the economic basis for our mountainous state. For without them, trade and movement of any kind comes to a complete standstill. Madam President, I took this photo as we flew over what looks to be a river, but it actually used to be a stretch of U.S. Highway 34 outside of Estes Park. That major east-west highway is gone. I mean, I'm astonished again looking at the photograph and the feelings that I know Senator Bennett and I and many others had on Saturday. These were oh my God moments over and over and over again. Mother Nature has literally rewritten the map. And this isn't an isolated incident in this canyon. There are dozens of these washouts like you see here. And that's why I'm going to fight in this Congress for full federal support of the recovery and rebuilding effort. And I'm confident that support will be there, just as it was for so many others in their time of need. In the meantime, individuals and businesses that are still dislocated or figuring out the extent of the damage must take action. So I want to share some advice that I've received from FEMA and the other agencies involved. If your home was damaged because of the storms of the past week, please go to disasterassistance.gov in order to view federal assistance that may be available to you and to submit your claim. So that's right here, disasterassistance.gov. And I urge everybody to go there to enroll, if you will, on that website. If you operate a small business that's been affected by the flooding, you should register your claim with the Small Business Administration by going to disasterloan.sba.gov. So again, if you have a small business, you've been affected by the flooding, go to this website, disasterloan.sba.gov. And if you're just looking, as so many people are, for a way to help those who are suffering as a result of this tragedy, please go to helpcoloradonow.org, where the state of Colorado has pooled resources to assist those in need. Madam President, as I conclude, again, I want to reference that in so many ways the history of our part of the nation, the West, has been a story of water. But now that very resource that's the lifeblood is writing a new chapter in our history as it runs uncontrolled over every road, field, and structure in its path. But we're Colorado tough. We're rugged cooperators. And our spirit of strength and independence that's seen us through the most trying of times, it will see us through these days of loss and hardship. Madam President, thank you for your attention. Thank you for your support. I yield the floor to my colleague and friend, and Michael Bennett.